Hi, and welcome to Danny Accounting. My name is Peter. Let's dive deep into the world of controlled transactions in Denmark, especially if you're a majority shareholder. This is important information if you want to avoid fines, so make sure to keep your ears open. First, a quick lowdown. If you're a majority shareholder and either a limited or full tax resident in Denmark, there is a special declaration you need to submit every year to the Danish tax agency. This is in addition to your standard tax return. But wait, what exactly are controlled transactions? Think of it as dealings between you and companies you have a controlling influence in. For instance, granting a loan to your company or maybe earning interest from a loan you provided. We'll delve more into that shortly. And speaking of documentation, always ensure you've got your transfer pricing documentation ready, even if you're only asked for it occasionally by the Danish tax agency. This documentation becomes particularly crucial if you're dealing with companies outside the EU that don't have a tax agreement with Denmark. An important thing to remember: Danish limited liability companies that hit certain consolidated thresholds need to hand in their transfer pricing documents and TAD after the tax return deadline. And these documents, they should include a master file and a local file, all in line with the OECD guidelines. And hey, just because you haven't hit those thresholds doesn't mean you're off the hook. If the Danish tax agency comes knocking, you'll still need to provide that transfer pricing documentation. Now, let's talk deadlines. The timeline for submitting your declaration about controlled transactions? That's tied up with your regular tax return deadline. So you might be wondering, when am I considered a majority shareholder? Simply put, if you have a controlling influence over a company, like owning more than a half its shares, that's you. And for our sole proprietors tuning in, breathe easy. You don't need to submit a declaration about controlled transactions for your sole proprietorship. So how do you make this declaration? Google search the form titled 04.021. It's a digital form, so you'll be filling it out and sending it over online. And remember, this annual ritual is a must for all Danish tax residents who are majority shareholders, even if there were no controlled transactions in that year. What happens if you slip up and forget? Well, fines. They typically range between 2,500 and 5,000 DKK, so better to stay on top of things. Before we wrap up, let's chat about some common controlled transactions. First, loans you grant to your company. Second, interest you earn from loans given to your company. However, your situation might vary. There is a spectrum of controlled transactions, from sales, purchases, rentals, and more. Be sure to specify each kind. A quick heads up on what not to include. First, your salary from a controlled company. Second, dividends you've raked in from a controlled company. And there you have it, a majority shareholder's guide to controlled transactions in Denmark. Remember, always consult with an accountant when in doubt. Thanks for joining in, and until next time, stay informed. My name is Peter, and we are Danny Accounting.